I have to make a video on this because I remember when Concord came and disappeared. One of the reasons a lot of people gave was, well, the market is just too saturated. Now, we all know that, yes, the market is saturated, but people do like hero shooters. Now, I have to also admit, when your hero shooter carries Wolverine and Marvel characters in it, it's likely that you can make money. But then Avengers bombed, but that was a fully priced game. Rivals is not doing that. Okay, let me go ahead and hit play. Oh, I got to sign into Steam. Let me go on my own Steam while I'm talking and go ahead and pretty much, get a hold of this game. I don't think I'll play much of it. It's just I'm curious. I want to see what's going on because I have some data here, guys, that is gonna blow your mind. So, what in the world is going on with this title, and why did Concord not hit like this? Well, Concord had a problem, a fundamental problem from many facets. To be very honest, it's one of those things where, when you think about it, it came out and it died immediately. But I think this game exposes Concord for having that fundamental problem more than anything else. Why did people not play Concord? Artistic direction, design implementation, and a few things were, very, very pertinent with that whole conversation. One thing that we'll say though is, right now, let's first look at the data. Let's first look at people who are playing this game. Okay, look at SteamDB, and the peak for the game was about 480,000 people. Wonderful, right? 24-hour peak. Current player right now numbers about 351,000 people are going crazy playing this game. It uses, in my opinion, it's probably something that I'm not really surprised by. The game has art just flowing out of its bones. Plus, a lot of people like at least one Marvel character. That's a thing. Then Path of Exile comes out too. Path of Exile is basically killing it, doing better. Now that has established, all written all over it. This is early access. They're doing a good job. They're knocking it out the park. It's a very brilliant game. And yet, Concord basically cited market saturation as its main problem. In fact, if you see articles, right, that actually talked about why Concord failed, it's interesting though that some of the things that they cite in that regard, are just really weird at the end of the day. Now, some we may say, okay, let's take for instance Paul Tassi's own "Why Concord Failed" video. I've read this one out loud before, on the channel. So let's go back to it. Let's see if truly these things are here. Number one, they said, "Oh man, look at the ads, bro. Come on, can we read at least?" Number one, their first reason is that it was $40. Path of Exile is 30. 29.99. Let's look at it for the early access. All right, the early access bundle, 29.99. So Path of Exile 2, sorry, is basically 29.99. You can buy a 59.99 bundle or $100 bundle to support the developers, and you get some stuff. So again, I think we can throw this away, right? We could just go ahead and say number one, nope. Hero shooter over saturation. All you have to do now is say the phrase hero shooter, and it's in blah 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 blah. Nope. It took 8 years to make. While many, nope, extremely poor hero design and aesthetics. This I can say, perhaps, perhaps you're onto something. The anti-woke crusade. Some are citing the game with its character design and then using woke to also. Well, if people were not going to play for the extremely poor hero design and aesthetics, then how does this, which was basically pointing to it, oh, you're saying that these guys actually made people know, hey, before you go buy it, these guys look like, is that what you're saying? So you can categorize this. I mean, the anti-woke crusade comes for anything, but there's some games that have survived it, right? So again, this one's under, no marketing. Okay, maybe. And then focus on mocap cinematics. I don't know what this is. This is, gameplay doesn't stand out. Yes, we've gotten number 9 before, but the gameplay does not stand out for $40. Okay, it's derivative of so many things. I think this is probably also a very valid claim. They just kind of maybe mishmash a whole bunch of stuff. It didn't have its own authenticity to it. So being like a Guardians of the Galaxy, Destiny, filter type thing was actually, pretty weird. And then it's drowned out by other hero shooters and drowned out by Wukong. That's an aspect to it. But again, the data is weird because these two games, Path of Exile and Rivals, are coming out really close to each other. Now they are different games. Path of Exile is not a hero shooter, but I'm just saying, you know. And again, in all fairness, Marvel Rivals is free, so okay, I give it to you, Paul. I'm sorry, I take it back. Okay, they could have probably launched the game free, so we add number one to the list again to see. Okay, maybe this was a significant issue at the time. Yes, I think this probably would have brought some people in. But X Defiant is failing, and I'm not saying that Marvel Rivals is going to maintain this particular streak. You never know. People may get bored and tired and go back to Call of Duty. You never know. But it's very interesting though that they could not even muster at the launch of that game an interested following. And then another thing that Paul Tassi failed to put here is also developers that won't shut up. As much as I like developers, and I've said this in my other videos, I hate dogging on developers. But if you work for a big company and you're a developer in that company, knowing how volatile the gaming scene is, your best bet is to stay very quiet. Let me show you guys another one that stayed quiet. And once they stayed quiet, they didn't shake, they didn't cause a ruckus. Well, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League. Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League failed, but it didn't fail as spectacularly as, as Concord. Right? It still was able to push about 1 million in sales because the devs, they just closed their mouth. Now, the one dev that said something about the Series S, they quickly, advised him, or I don't know, HR probably said, man, you might want to just go ahead and deactivate your Twitter and hold your job. Because at any point, you just say the wrong thing and it's over. And I can tell you, if you think about a game like Hogwarts Legacy was made in a studio where there were probably people who thought one way or the other, right? And those devs did not come out and lambast gamers in that regard. They just stayed clear of all of that. So if the developers from these studios can just be quiet and just let their game speak, I think you might see something of a in my opinion anyways, of an interest from people who just want to play your game, who don't have anything against you or whatever it is. They just want to play your game. The customer's always right. That analogy, I know it's a terrible analogy, but it is what it is. So let the customer yell and whatnot. But those customers that were yelling at Indiana Jones that are now playing the game, they're now coming around and saying, okay, we judge too harshly. Simple. But then some developers have gone out there and started to talk nonsense. Y'all need to rein those guys in, man. If I was a creative director, well, I'm a classroom teacher, so I can see nuisance and start reining it in real quick. Sometimes, managing people is actually like a classroom. I've managed people before, and when they told me that it's just going to be like a classroom, I was like, there's no way. And it was way too similar to a classroom. However, it was the real world with real consequences that are not just, you using your discretion to deal with something. So I kind of went back to teaching again, and I was like, yeah, I would prefer it to be in teaching where I can correct the mistakes before we get into the real world and then the shenanigans start happening. But I think Concord really did, mess around and found out that there are many things that you have to put into, making your video game. And its developers, could have, I would say its creative direction could have been much better at the end of the day. But again, to talk about saturation, I don't know, bro. Some games just do it, some games don't. And I think Concord just didn't. It's sad to see how everything turned out, but, I can't imagine gamers are probably saying, oh, well, there's no way it would have worked because the market is just so saturated. But then, bam, look at this. Yeah, right. Talk to me in the comment section, guys. Appreciate y'all. Peace out.